they would use someone else. The first part of the statement, what we're asking the candidates to do is to tell you who they are, why they're running for the township committee to open seats, and why the voters should choose them. What they would like to accomplish if elected. Candidates' opening remarks are 3 minutes each and will take place in the following order. Diane Paul-Ego, William Al-Alabi, Dave Morrow, and Frank. Are you ready to begin? Diane?
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you, the Short Hills Association, and welcome to everyone this evening for coming out. I am Deputy Mayor Diane Paul-Ego. I am a registered Democrat running for independent online city. I grew up in Millburn. We raised our 3 kids here, and I've often volunteered at their schools. I ran the boosters for the high school debate team for 4 years. I was an active member on the Millburn Volunteer First Aid Squad for 15 years. So I was captain and sitting on the executive board. I have served on the township committee for the last 6 years. As you can see, I'm a strong believer in community service. I ran for the township committee when the multi-million-dollar complete streets project was underway. Lack of planning cost taxpayers a lot of money. Many township projects led my initiation. I will give a few. The removal of the raised parking on Millburn Avenue, the installation of the new library turf field, allowing dogs in Taylor Park, installation of speed humps in and around the South Mountain neighborhood, especially near the school. I will continue to advocate for that at other locations. Millburn's YouTube channel allowing easy access to all our meetings and saving thousands of dollars. I oversaw many new safety ordinances, additional always stop signs, and better lighting downtown. A green initiative resulting in the plastic bag ordinance a year before mandated by the New Jersey state. Proposed Millburn sign-on with the Energy Aggregation Consortium. I had the first roundtable for commercial property and business owners. Thus, I started the process to establish the TRC, Technical Review Committee, to help alleviate difficulties and added expenses when applicants appear before our planning and zoning boards. I am currently working with our traffic engineer to implement construction at the Short Hills train station to better organize traffic circulation and pedestrian safety. When I was mayor, for the first time in 10 years, I initiated RFPs to reconsider our town's professionals. I refused to cave to party patronage when I was pressured by the Democrats to hire their preferred firms. The Democrats in the Township Committee voted to toe the party line. I lost my mayorship and was denied all subcommittees appointments. This was well orchestrated by my Democratic opponent, Mr. Mona's husband, a longtime Essex County City Hall employee, as is she. I guess you could say I was Liz Cheney before Liz was. I want to continue to represent our residents' best interests with their input. This is the only way we can come together as a community to tackle large looming issues such as amending the Fair Share Housing Settlement Agreement. That was negotiated by Ms. Miggins and Mr. Wasserman behind closed doors, in which our paid attorney pressured the Township Committee to accept and the planning board members to vote yes, all along insisting the township would risk dire legal consequences if we did not.
Thank you, Diane.
Okay, thank you.
I'll next ask you all to give us your opening statement.
Can you all hear me? Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the Short Hills Association for organizing this most important annual forum for the candidates in our community. For those who may not have met me, my name is Oyi Owolani. I am mom of 3 school-aged children, and we have lived in Millburn for 15 years. I work as a research scientist in the oncology space. I am Nigerian-born and immigrated to the U.S. when I was 10 years old. I love this country and what it has afforded me and my family. I have been giving back to my community all my adult life and created a track record of improving the schools, scout troops, advocacy organizations, and churches where I served. I was an elected member of the Millburn's Board of Education for 4 years, and there I accomplished major projects as chair of the property committee.
One example being the Washington School Purchase and Development. My extensive record of volunteer service to Millburn and New Jersey, besides my term on the Board of Education, includes an appointment to the Environmental Commission, service unit manager for the Girl Scouts, and an adult leader for Boy Scouts Troops 19 and 15. I was also the former chairwoman of the Nigerian American Public Affairs. While I treasure the many volunteer activities that connect me to the community, the skills that I acquired in my professional life, like how to manage groups of experts, facilitate teams to reach productive decisions, deal with big problems, and look for effective solutions, have prepared me to serve on the township committee. I was proud to be called a unifier by a highly regarded former school board member. She sat with me side by side for years on that board and observed how I brought different sides together with respect and dignity. I also learned how valuable residents' input is in helping to shape community decisions. I am defined by my contributions to my family, my community, and my fellow human beings. I have proved to be a moderate person in all aspects of my personal and professional life. This includes my exercise of moderate political views. I am willing, ready, and have the leadership experience to serve my community in this complex and highly divisive time. I will unify our community. In this complex, I will unify our community and not divide us, so that we can solve together the formidable problems facing our town. I am willing to stop the unchecked power of the single-party rule in our town. We have suffered as a community from having no checks and balances on the power that our township committee members have acquired for themselves. Now, many residents no longer trust them. My vision for Millburn is one that brings a balance between keeping the character of Millburn's neighborhoods intact, ensuring that affordable housing is provided responsibly, focusing the governing body's efforts in ensuring the safety of every member of our community, maintaining a sustainable infrastructure for the township.
Thank you, William.
Thank you.
We'll next hear from Dave Morrow. Dave?
Thank you, Tom. Hello, I'm David Morrow. I'm an independent candidate for Millburn Township Committee. My wife and I have lived in Millburn for 8.5 years. Our daughter is a sophomore in the Millburn High School. I served on the Millburn Township Planning Board for over 2 years. It's vitally important for me to give back to my community in which I reside. I've been a registered independent all of my life. I am both a fiscal conservative and a social progressive. I offer Millburn Township decades of experience in business operations, portfolio management, finance, and commercial real estate. I have managed multi-million square foot commercial portfolio operations, numerous land use and building valuations, and modeled highest and best use property scenarios. I've worked as the owner's representative with zoning and planning boards in New Jersey and around the country. I wholly understand the multifamily. I am a commercial real estate professional. And with all due respect to our moderator, Tom Hildner, I am not a real estate developer. That is a bit of misinformation that has been pervaded throughout the community by one of my opponents or their agents. I have never been a real estate developer. Contract negotiations and labor relations skills I possess and have honed over many years of transaction and personnel management. Additionally, as an executive and managing officer of multiple organizations, I've had direct responsibility for evaluating and choosing third-party professionals such as land use planners, attorneys, design architects, contractors, and multiple discipline engineers. I offer all of these skills for the benefit of Millburn Short Hills. Thank you.
Thank you, David. My apologies, there was nothing intended by my paraphrasing.
I absolutely understand it. It's a common mistake when people hear commercial real estate, they typically add on developer, which is misnomer.
All right, well, our last opening statement is from Frank Fettelman. Frank?
Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's debate.
The mic.
You can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Yes. So, good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's debate. My name is Frank Sacmandy. My husband Jerry and I chose to build our home in Millburn 4 years ago. We have plans to start a family, and we want our future children to enjoy the suburban quality of life that everyone has come One day, I found out about the income segregated dump housing project from a flyer on my car. Upon further investigation, I discovered that this was merely the tip of the iceberg. There was a huge wave of impending overdevelopment coming that would dramatically alter our town. Jerry and I attended township committee meetings to voice our concerns, but it fell on deaf ears. We knew a change of leadership was needed, and I even considered supporting Diane with her campaign. But after researching her record, I decided there were too many egregious mistakes. In business, such lapses in judgment would be grounds for dismissal, certainly not a contract extension. After meeting Boyan, I was drawn to her fighting spirit and her genuine passion for our town. I love the fact that she has 3 kids in the school system, all while working full-time as a scientist. Over the summer, I got a call from Boyan's team regarding a vacancy on the Republican ticket. I was asked to step up and be her running mate. I never imagined I'd run for any sort of political office, and I initially brushed off the idea. But after careful consideration, I realized that I have the skills necessary to help Millburn out of this mess. I am an IT infrastructure engineer with over 15 years of private sector experience building consensus to address mission-critical problems with diverse teams across global offices. I have managed 8-figure budgets, negotiated large contracts, and managed complex transitions. I approach problems with an engineering mindset and an analytical lens. I don't simply accept consultant advice at face value. Instead, I investigate the facts for myself before crafting solutions. This approach has served me well in my career, and it's the type of critical thinking we need at this juncture. So I accepted the offer to join Boyan's campaign. However, we still had to address the elephant, or lack thereof, in the room. I was a registered Democrat. Truth be told, like most Americans, I am moderate in my political view. I have been a registered Democrat and a registered Republican at various times in my life. But for the most part, I have been unaffiliated. I had reservations about becoming a Republican. But all of my concerns were addressed after meeting with members of the local Millburn Republican Party. They explained that the local party allows for and even encourages differing viewpoints, so long as they adhere to the principles of civil exchange of ideas and transparent, accountable, and limited governance. All of these are values I can readily support. The best way to fix our polarized political system is for more moderate candidates like Boyan and me to step up. And so I am proud to be able to say that the Millburn Republican ticket is the most diverse and most inclusive ticket in this race. Together, Boyan, a Nigerian-born mother of 3, and I, an openly gay man in an interracial marriage, will work tirelessly to chart a better way forward for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. That completes the first part of our debate, the opening statement. In the second part of our debate, the Short Hills Association has given the candidates 3 questions prior to this debate. All candidates have been given the same 3 questions and will be asked to respond in turn to each question in their own words. Each candidate will be given a maximum of 3 minutes for each question. The first question is this. Recognizing that Millburn has an obligation to provide some affordable housing, please tell us specifically how you plan to address that issue as a member of the Township Committee. Is there anything that you believe the Township Committee should have done that it did not do regarding affordable housing? Frank, I'm going to ask you to respond to it first.
So the most critical action that the Township Committee didn't take, which should have, was to file its fair share housing plan on time. This would have avoided the builder's remedy lawsuit in 2018, which is what opened Pandora's box. Had the plan been filed on time, the Upton project alone would have satisfied the entirety of the units required to be built, and the zoning changes required would have had much lower and more reasonable densities. We've heard a lot of false rhetoric about Republican administrations kicking the can down the road. The fact is, for fully developed communities like Millburn, the exact Mount Laurel obligation was not codified for decades. It was widely recognized that there was no vacant land on which to build, and no developer had approached the township to build new housing. The current process only began in 2015, and almost every town in New Jersey filed their plan that year. Why the Township Committee waited until after they were sued in 2018 to file their fair share housing plan, I do not know. The Township Committee was under full Democratic control at that time, and they dropped the ball. Diane was on the Township Committee at that time, so maybe she can explain this. Perhaps Diane could also explain why, during that year, she sat on the committee negotiating with Fair Share, she made no progress towards a settlement, and apparently didn't do the due diligence to understand the process and the intricacies involved. Had she done so, when the current agreement came to a vote, she would have raised a red flag. Diane has also repeatedly stated that she was pressured into signing the agreement by the town's Fair Share attorney. Why didn't she make a fuss sooner? Why was she so easily pressured into signing something she didn't agree with? The facts here just don't add up. The township committee should have also engaged and informed residents. At the very least, residents should have been informed of the terms of the agreement prior to its final passage with a townwide mailer or info sessions to explain the agreement and its impact. Keeping residents in the dark was unacceptable. The township committee members, including Diane, should have also compared our settlement agreement with those of similar towns prior to voting on it. If they did that, they would have realized Millburn got the worst deal in the state. Boyd and I will demand that the existing apartments in town be inventoried, as there are potentially 600 apartments that are on the cusp of being considered affordable. In parallel, we will revisit the current settlement agreement with the assistance of new, competent legal counsel, and will fight for the best interests of Millburn. We have a proposal that would scrap the dump project and reduce densities to 16 units an acre in all zones abutting existing single-family neighborhoods. Based on recent court precedent stating that affordable housing obligation is not site-specific, this solution fully satisfies our constitutional obligation. We would have our new counsel present this proposal directly to the new judge who has been assigned to our case. I encourage all of you to go to our website, boyandfrank.com, and sign up for the webinar we're going to be holding this Thursday at 7:30 p.m., where we're going to go much further into depth about our fair share housing plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. I'm going to ask David to respond to our first question.
Thank you, Tom. If we had skilled, nonpartisan leadership negotiating and unbiased professionals working with us, as well as we being engaged with the community, we as a township could have identified sites that were reasonably likely to be developed and created proportionate zoning overlays that could have been filed on time and later negotiated with the fair share housing before the so-called gun was put to Millburn Short Hill's head by the state between 20 and 21. The fact is, Millburn Township's leadership should have examined different legal alternatives, but they chose inexplicably to follow the partisan voice that was guiding them. Suffice it to say that the current Democratic leadership, in the interest of expediency and through guidance of these biased, self-interested professionals, entered into a closed-door agreement to address Millburn's unmet affordable housing needs. This includes upsized future developments and disproportionate zoning overlays, as well as erecting an income-segregated housing project on the contaminated town dump, all without any prior discussion or engagement from the community. Millburn's Mayor Miggins and the outgoing Township Committee member Wasserman folded and then told the Millburn Township community it was the best they could do. The single threat of the loss of immunity was enough to get the Millburn Township Committee to seal it for the Fair Share Housing Center. Imagine their surprise in Cherry Hill at how easily they outmaneuvered the township's governing body. We know we must take action to deal with this possible solution. It will require a process which will begin on day one after the election. Millburn Township must retain independent, unbiased land use and legal professionals to assist us, and for obvious reasons, those without allegiances and current relationships in other municipalities with the Fair Share Housing Center. Concurrently, we as a township with new independent legal counsel should investigate the possibility and benefit analysis of joining the towns that have filed a Fair Share Housing lawsuit against the state of New Jersey. It may be an option for Millburn Short Hills. However, those already engaged in the action may not want Millburn Township because of how poorly a settlement agreement we executed. That remains to be legally vetted. Millburn Township must file a petition to amend this flawed settlement agreement, jointly with the Fair Share Housing Center and the court, as is allowed by the fully executed document. Our Democratic government leadership has refused to address this option, given multiple opportunities to do so. We have an opportunity now that the planned income segregated project will not be delivered 1 year away. Our best proactive step is to engage Millburn Shore
Thank you
Hills
very much,
Community.
David.
Thank you.
Joanne, we're going to ask you to respond next to our first question.
I am entirely supportive of Millburn's constitutional and moral obligations to provide affordable housing in our community. I am against the Fair Share Housing Agreement as it stands, and I will support scrapping the dump projects in its entirety. It is wrong on every measure for this town. Income segregated housing on the toxic town dump. Who could imagine such a thing would be proposed in Millburn? We must reduce densities in line with the master plan for this town in the unmet needs part of our agreement. And we can go back to the new judge assigned to Millburn, noting that not a single resident was given any opportunity to provide input on such an enormous, consequential decision for our town. The process thus far has violated our constitutional rights. I wrote to the judge. I was one of the few people who wrote to the new judge. I don't know if I can say the same for any of our opponents. The town did all it could for a fully developed community up until 2015. In fact, we have residents in the community who live in housing that is in line with the state's affordable housing guidelines. I also know this because I know a lot of the residents who fall under this category. We need to do a much better job of researching and putting action plans in place to convert a portion of those units, incentivizing property owners to meet the state's affordable housing mandates as well as senior and disabled housing. We could provide the financial support as a community to do that. Conversions could prove to be a much more cost-effective way to meet our mandate. This investigative work was not done by our current township committee. The prior township committee, under the Republican leadership, negotiated with the developer to produce the opt-in, which is unstreamed and includes a 20% set aside for affordable housing. This was a resounding success and served as a model for future TCs as how to work through our constitutional mandate. Instead, successive TCs since 2018, once under the leadership of the majority Democratic members, opened a Pandora's box, as Frank mentioned, by abdicating their responsibilities for affordable housing. The fact is the TC was in negotiation with a builder called Silverman for a year or more for the project at 85 Woodland Road. Diane Edlow, who was on the TC at the time, and the rest of the members failed to perform their fiduciary responsibilities to this town. They allowed the township's attorney to file the declaratory judgment late. It was missed by 3 days. Most other municipalities actually filed theirs on time. We were the exception. This put Millburn in a very poor negotiation position with the Fair Share Housing Center. We got the worst deal in the entire state of New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. All right, Diane, if you would give us our last response to that first question.
Thank you. Thank you. Clearly, as the incumbent, I've got a target on my back, as you see my name is mentioned over and over. That's okay. There's a lot that they don't know that went on. Like our long-term planner did make his first offer to fair share housing at 17 units per acre throughout the town. That was absolutely rejected by fair share housing. So 16 will absolutely not be accepted. It was filed late. It was a snowstorm. That was way before Zoom. That was just bad luck on our part. I also accept that Millburn Township has to fulfill an obligation to the New Jersey state mandated Supreme Court ruling. However, the current fair share housing settlement is not fair and must not stand. We must amend the current settlement. More viable overlay districts must be assessed with input from informed neighbors, residents, and community input, so that affordable units will be more evenly distributed throughout the township. There must be parity amongst available locations. No one neighborhood must be overloaded to protect another. We should have had the protection of the courts rather than the dictates of the unfair settlement agreement. In fact, this should not even be in the courts, but that's where it is, and until it changes, that is what we have to deal with. This is why we must hire new planners and land use attorneys to guide and advise us, not an insider fair share housing planner
where the majority of her business is to settle for the fair share housing side. While I agree we must do something, the 75-unit, 100% all affordable housing project slated for the dump site must not go forward. Again, we need professionals who will be on our side and reevaluate the decades-old area in need of study, because that is outdated. And we must not segregate a population to get our numbers approved by the courts, which is how this deal was made. We must consider flooding implications and what is best use of this valuable piece of property in downtown. We must first have a plan, which we do not have, to move even a portion of the DPW. The inability to deliver the DPW site in 2023, October, 1 year from now, would give the township an opening to amend the settlement agreement. Knowledge of our real options, honed negotiating skills, and an unbiased professional and legal team, along with support of knowledgeable residents about viable replacement sites, will pave the way to forging an amendment that does not place us in an adversarial and legally vulnerable position. Only we, the independents, have the real estate expertise and the negotiating skills to turn our inability to develop the DPW into an opportunity to amend the settlement agreement and position ourselves to have a productive, non-litigious conversation with fair share housing about our 2025 allocation. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. We now turn to our second question, which is as follows. Do you believe that residents should be given a greater opportunity to be involved in the township's decision-making process? If you do, how do you propose to accomplish that? I'm going to ask David to respond to that first.
Thank you, Tom. Millburn just experienced the negligence of local government ignoring the residents with regard to the closed-door settlement agreement, done without any prior community engagement. The voice of the community was held in blatant disregard. The community should have the opportunity, if they want to take part, to review and discuss through the public meeting process prior to any significant Millburn Short Hills decision affecting the residents and the quality of their life. My running mate Diane Eglo and I both support engaging the residents in the decision-making process. We need to open up the township steering committees to a wider range of residents and not chosen individuals based upon their familiarity with a specific member of the township committee. The opportunities to engage all residents should be readily posted on its own page on the township website. As part of this process, the township's website needs to be more user-friendly so residents understand how to apply to join the committees they are interested in. Township committee meetings need to be more open to allow for expanded public comment on the specific items residents may have concern. The formats of the meeting need to be kept consistent and not continually altered upon the whim of one committee member's individual agenda. Questions regarding the meeting agenda could certainly be taken in advance of the meeting with an appropriate time notice for organizing and a time frame for providing answers to those questions. Voting line C is a vote for the residents of our community to be heard without current township committees, Essex County politicking, and personal priority agendas. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm now going to ask Oyden to respond to that.
Thank you. I am totally against the authoritarian dictates of the current township committee and will do everything possible to change this completely. Our residents, taxpayers, and businesses need to feel they have a voice in this town. It's unattainable to think the township committee can dictate to this intelligent, accomplished, and compassionate town. How they will educate their children, work, live, and play in our bucolic community in the future. Yet they have done it. The town has been awakened to the sneaky, behind closed doors operations of this township committee under Maggie Miggins, Diane Eglo, Richard Wasame, Sanjeev Vinayak, and Tara Purpose. All of them have steamed and shut down residents' input at every step of the way. For all of the fanfare about getting community input into the downtown vision plan, in the end, Diane and her colleagues hired a consultant that was prepared to do away with our nationally renowned rose garden in Taylor Park. The community came out in force and shut that down with a petition, and large groups attended and spoke at public meetings. They managed to stop this crazy effort. A similar and even more potent outcry has come from our residents about devastating affordable housing settlement agreement. A petition with over 2,000 signatures has circulated. Many pillars of the community have come to meetings after meeting, imploring the TC to stop the devastating dump project and ultra-high density giveaways to developers. For all you may hear about Diane's approach to allowing community input, she took the chair at a recent meeting and proceeded to open public comment, then shut it down almost as fast when the public comment were in opposition to her views. She, like the rest of the TC, silences our residents. We will open the doors to our community. We are not beholden to any special interest or party machine. We will not cover to developers in and out of town. They have given to our Democratic candidates' campaigns. All of you can look this up. And they expect return on their investment. And they got it. They got it on our backs. So we have to do a clean sweep of this way of doing business because it is putting a permanent stain on this town. Our elected officials must engage the public. We will do that by allowing public comments at least twice a public meeting. We will create various citizens advisory committees, especially on key decisions like affordable housing, flood mitigation, and public safety. Our standing committees need to be populated by strong qualifications. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Luann. I'm now going to ask Diane to give her response to that question.
Thank you. First, I want to say we really need more positivity and less anger, because the reason we're in the place we are is we have a lot of angry people coming to our committee meetings, causing disruption. And I did have 2 public comment sessions when I was mayor, and then we did have disruptive residents. We now have an officer who comes to our meetings. It's not comfortable for anybody, and I believe when Dave and I are up there, that will not happen. And of course, I believe residents should have a greater involvement in our township committee's work. Not only should residents be involved, they should be unbiased individuals, selected and based on their knowledge and experience. When you elect Dave and I as independents, non-partisan candidates, you will have an independent committee that is free from political party obligations and interference. Currently, our mayor, Ms. Miggins, chooses and rewards residents who are her political appointees, people who are certain to follow her party line. Annette Romano's husband and her run the Democratic Party. They are always in the background deciding who gets what committee places and who should be put on what. But an independent board appointees can be selected who have the best qualifications regardless of their party affiliation or favors of Millburn benefit. Committee woman Pruvis and I started the flood mitigation subcommittee. Mayor Miggins, along with Mr. Wasserman and Mr. Bernaya, went against sunshine laws, called our attorney on Saturday. Without warning, removed Karen and I as the lead committee representatives. They then rejected 4 very qualified individuals from the subcommittee, all who have historical and working knowledge of the downtown. Consequently, the downtown has no representation on the flood mitigation committee, nor solutions for our businesses that suffered so during Ida. This is how partisanship hurts our community. This is again why I have chosen to run as an independent, because we can do better, because we work for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. Frank, what is your response to this question?
I absolutely believe that residents should be given greater opportunity to participate. Civic engagement is critical to a healthy democracy, and it should not begin and end with voting once a year. I have many ideas for how we can accomplish this. First, public comment. We must greatly expand public comment at the township committee meetings. Currently, residents have 1 3-minute session at the beginning. Residents should have 2 5-minute sessions at the start and one at the end. They should also be allowed to submit questions in advance, which will be posted publicly on the website. This will expedite the meeting and ensure greater transparency into unanswered questions requiring follow-up. We should also remove the police presence from our meetings. Having law enforcement in the room is a waste of taxpayer dollars and is an intimidation tactic to chill resident participation. Second, education and awareness. We should host a yearly seminar explaining how our local government works. This information session would explain the various boards and commissions, as well as the basics of rules and procedures, such as how motions, resolutions, and ordinances work. It should detail how the budget is compiled and how residents can get involved. It would also be a great way to advertise the many wonderful community groups we have in town. Third, transparency. Broader awareness of these volunteer positions on boards and commissions would ensure that we are reaching the widest set of residents and drawing from the deepest pool of talent. Personal statements submitted by applicants should be public record, and volunteer selections should be open and transparent. The existing process is opaque and encourages political patronage, leading to important boards being staffed with party loyalists who rubber stamp anything that comes before them. While canvassing, I have spoken to many residents who are eager and willing to serve, but were never selected simply due to their political affiliation, and this is unacceptable. Fourth, feedback. Residents should have the option to sign up for text alerts related to local government. For any decisions where direct community input would be helpful, such as closing off Main Street to vehicular traffic for the summer, we can implement text surveying to better understand the desires of the community. To demonstrate that our ideas are not just empty promises, our actions on the campaign trail have thus far already proven our dedication to promoting civic participation. Because the Township Committee refused to do so, we compiled a set of instructions on how to submit letters to the court regarding the Fair Share Housing Settlement Agreement and encouraged residents to join us in filing objections. We were pleased to see that many residents joined Oya and me in submitting letters to the judge, though it was curious that Diane did not submit one, as far as we are aware. Actions speak louder than words, and given that she has rescinded her vote in favor of the agreement, it is disappointing to me that she is not joining her constituents in expressing her newfound dissatisfaction. To recap, I plan to establish greater resident participation by expanding public comment, increasing education and awareness, volunteer selection transparency, and soliciting feedback using technology. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, our third and last question given to the candidates prior to the debate is as follows. Considering our inflationary environment, what financial action should be taken by the Township Committee to evaluate and prioritize township objectives, analyze and adjust the budget, and oversee expenditures to save tax dollars? For example, how should the Township Committee evaluate capital projects like a new city hall or other infrastructure projects in order to control costs? I'm going to ask William to give us the first response.
I will start by initiating a call for a strategic plan. We had one on the Board of Ed, and we need one for Township. It is our North Star and guides everything we do. Without one, an institution or local governing body gets lost, and we have no map to follow. I would advocate for zero-based budgeting, forcing us to take a hard look at every penny we spend and whether it is efficient, wise, and needed. We have had a series of expensive and disjointed plans prepared by consultants chosen for their allegiance to a certain organized view of Millburn. Downtown Vision, Transit Village, Main Street, New Jersey, Gateway Taylor Park, Fair Share Housing Agreement. They are not coordinated or even used when budgeting process is underway. If we want long-term improvement projects, then we need to plan for them and budget for them. We have to stop doing Township Committee members' pet projects, putting in sidewalks and tearing them out. Our town operates in always increase the budget mode, and we need to change that drastically. We must take a business approach, and Frank and I have the skills to do that. Those skills have been lacking on recent township committees. I will see if we could implement a continuous improvement model for delivery of township services. We have been chopping and changing, outsourcing various departments with no explanation as to why we are doing this, other than to save money. But do we? If we take the employees and move them elsewhere, and the service is reduced in quality and quantity, what is the point? Animal control is an example of this. We closed down Main Street for a significant part of the year. This was a popular decision, and I support doing this, but we should analyze the cost benefit for the town as a whole and see what we need to do better for the town. We are relying on one-off payments such as COVID money the past couple of years. But what happens when COVID money is spent? Taxes have been kept flat because of those monies. This is not a sound basis for future planning. What about employee salaries and benefits? And how do these look over the long term? Are they sustainable? They are our largest expenses, and we need to know this in detail. Diane and her Democrat colleagues have proposed 2 new taxes: open space and stormwater utility. How many more new taxes are they thinking about? How much more will residents tolerate? We must look at our legal fees and reduce this astronomical cost that incur because our township committee keeps making mistakes in hiring lawyers and other professionals to clean up their messes. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Diane, please give us your response.
Thank you. Millburn Township has always been run in a fiscally conservative manner. We have a surplus and we're very cautious. Planning cannot be stressed enough when we are considering projects of any size and scope. The Complete Streets fiasco, before my time, proved that. We at TC are tasked with overseeing and improving the budget and municipal services. Services our residents have come to rely on. Our pickup twice a week, leaf pickup, and so many other things our Department of Public Works takes care of. Many services we provide that other communities do not. They come with a cost. I do sit on the Finance Committee with our extremely qualified CFO, who works with his team and our business administrator on the budget. A very large amount of our budget is not discretionary, and salaries and benefits are a large part of the township budget. Our infrastructure is old. It's not unusual to have a water main break and unexpected emergencies. Just like our homes, stuff happens, needs to be addressed, and it costs money to fix it. I am the first one to have requested a comprehensive analysis of all township-owned buildings and facilities condition survey. This included talking to all township employees to determine what they see as short-term, mid-term, and long-term needs. This would put into perspective maintenance needs and costs. I know that our municipal buildings are in varying degrees of disrepair and neglect. I believe the people who work for us deserve better than plastic on the windows, frayed carpets. We must provide reliable HVAC, generators, safe steps and walkways, functioning doors, upgraded electric panels, radio systems that allow our emergency response to have constant and consistent reliable communication, a storage area that is protected from flooding and potential mold forming, roofs that do not leak, asbestos-free and working bathrooms, to name a few. Our building department is antiquated. Our committee room is antiquated. We have not implemented CAD, computer-aided design and drafting state-of-art systems. I started the Millburn YouTube channel, which provided access to meetings as never before. Thus, we were ready for the pandemic and never missed a meeting. However, we still spent thousands to upgrade as Zoom took over. Our audiovisual is a problem at times, disrupting our meetings, affecting viewers' ability to share and hear. We have had millions of dollars fixing and repairing. I believe we must continue to evaluate capital projects and have a plan. We must ask, is it prudent to continue to repair and replace piecemeal, or do we, as a community other communities have, consider a municipal complex that is state-of-the-art, that is fitting to our premier community? These things can't be ignored. And I think until you're up in the township committee, you don't understand the complexities of keeping things moving along, which is really where we want to do, what is best for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Diane. Frank, what is your answer to that question?
In the most recent master plan re-examination from 2018, there's a matrix of recommendations indicating short, less than 1 year, medium, 1 to 3 years, and ongoing objectives for our township. However, this list is disjointed, and it makes it difficult to evaluate how we are performing. In order to make informed financial decisions, it is critical for us to have an integrated plan. We must incorporate standards and practices from the business world and compile a unified strategic plan for the future of our town. This plan should indicate specific, measurable milestones that will allow the community to track progress towards completion. In an inflationary environment, we may find that some objectives may be delayed. But if we have a strategic plan, we can ensure that we are still able to make good progress on each of the different fronts that are critical to residents. We can also make more informed cost-benefit analysis to better understand prioritization for medium and long-term projects. In speaking with our business administrator, Alex McDonald, Oyen and I learned that our township never decreases budgets. A local government never does a look back to understand how we spent money and whether it was done in an intelligent, efficient manner. Our township should institute zero-based budgeting so that each year we understand what services are no longer necessary and identify where cost savings can be achieved while still maintaining a high level of service. One recent example that affected residents adversely was when animal control services in our town were cut. This was presented as a cost savings because it freed up 2 DPW employees, and the replacement service was cheaper than the cost of the 2 employees. However, these 2 employees were still kept on the payroll, so it was actually a cost increase. To make matters worse, the new animal control service was outsourced and provided an unacceptably low quality of service. Many residents complained about having to drag deer carcasses to the curb, as well as unresponsive call centers in remote locations. Any changes to service providers must be intensely scrutinized so taxpayers are receiving the best bang for the buck. Here, I do have to commend Diane for standing up to the Essex County Democrat machine and refusing to make appointments demanded of her. But I do not agree with her most recent statements at township committee meetings where she has proposed raising taxes for what seem like pet projects devoid of any long-term strategy for planning. Proper fiscal responsibility begins with a deep understanding of exactly what we will get for our tax dollars. We must never put the cart before the horse. For capital projects like a new city hall or other infrastructure projects, measurable milestones must be in place before any action is taken. Funding should be secured, and the proper financial instruments should be used to protect us against any potential inflationary conditions that could occur during the course of the project. With a unified strategy and proper long-term planning, we can set aside reserves as necessary to embark on these capital projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. David?
Thank you. Millburn Township's community cost-benefit interest should always be a priority when crafting the annual operations budget, inflation notwithstanding. The annual township operations budget must be an ongoing review, dealing with day-to-day quality of life and safety operations of Millburn Short Hills. If there are projects that were planned to take place in the current year, but now have become inflated or improperly budgeted, then immediate conversations take place between the paid financial consultant, the business administrator, and the designated TC members responsible to make adjustments, either in project scope or reallocation to other necessary, more cost-effective projects. Only then is there potential to recapture it in the current year as tax savings, with subsequent adjustment in the capital plan forward. If the town's paid CFO and BA have properly built the township's 3 to 5 year capital plan for improving and maintaining the township assets, as well as projects aimed at improving Millburn Short Hills infrastructure, the adjustment in allocated funds should be fluid and simple enough to adjust if the team is paying attention. Our independent plan would be to share the following year's capital budget with the community at the prior December year's end meeting. Budget surpluses or allocations must be evaluated as they arise in consideration of Millburn Short Hills' quality of life objectives. We all know Millburn Short Hills has spent an inordinate amount of funds to date on various litigation. Some are required, whether justified or not. However, this needs a thorough cost-benefit review analysis. It will be the objective of my running mate and I, once elected, to dive into the details with both the paid financial consultant and the township's business administrator of where Millburn Short Hills stands in the current year's expenditures. so that adjustments, whether regarding cost, scope, or project priority, can be made now. Then review it openly with the Millburn Short Hills community, if applicable, addressing the planned or necessary projects required for 2023 and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next part of our debate is the audience questions. However, before we get to those, we're going to take a 5-minute break or so. And all of you will have the opportunity, some of you may have done it already, or if you haven't gotten it, we have index cards and pencils that you can use to fill out the questions. Let me just say something about the audience questions before we take our break, and then we select the questions that you have. I'm going to read the questions to the candidates. However, as I mentioned earlier, we reserve the right to reject any inappropriate questions. We're also going to be working to avoid repeat or inappropriate questions, but we're going to make every attempt to be fair and impartial in the selection of your questions in the time allotted. The candidates will be given 2 minutes to respond to each question. If the question is addressed to a particular candidate, that candidate will be allowed to respond first. Now, in the event that a candidate gives an answer that another candidate wants to give a comment on, that will be permitted. We ask the candidate to raise his or her hand, which will indicate to me that a comment is desired. However, depending on the time, we have to do this very briefly. So we're trying to work that in our discretion, how that works, but that is another opportunity here. So we'll now take our 5-minute break. Please, this is the most interesting, perhaps, certainly the most important part of the debate, and we look forward to getting your questions.
Community to see that they aren't there. They decided not to.
Now, there are also refreshments in the back. One to guarantee there will be these once weekly in the debate. Is back there on the
I haven't seen Gabby since John Marco. How's she doing? Where is she? Yeah.
He said he didn't know how to do it. That's
You don't need to come with me.
I cannot hear you.
It's good. I heard that there was something posted. So I said, don't you know why can't they show me? You know why they're not there. Well, I think they
I go to law school.
So you got the next December.
So I gotta see it next summer. I'm gonna go over and see. All of the candidates the real I read that on Facebook. Did you like that? I know, I love it.
I think I have long.
Fun. I'm supposed to meet up. They've got similar.
I drink a lot of coffee. Yeah.
I'm gonna watch the I'm gonna watch the recap. Okay. I didn't, but you know, I know where to find it. Have a good
How you doing? Well, I watched the one Sunday, and there was a lot of overlap in the questions.
Yeah, the beginning part, yeah.
So I'm kind of interested in how they think on their feet, the questions that come in from the crowd, more so than the pre-K questions.
Yeah.
I mean, they all kind of answered them all the same way.
Essentially.
Yeah, there wasn't much difference between them. I didn't. But hopefully the questions from the audience will be a little more interesting.
Yeah, I didn't put right in. We'll see what other times do.
Not that they weren't interesting questions, it's just that it was a lot of repeat.
Yeah. There's only so much that we
Well, there are a lot of topics that I think we can hear on, and hopefully some people will come up. So. I see, he's going through them now.
Yeah, you can. I can, right here, so. Yeah,
She was asking me something.
All right, everybody. We'd like to begin with the audience questions. I'm going to ask the marshal to sort of be on the back of the
Yes, I believe it. Oh, is that what it is? Oh.
Here we are. Everybody have a seat, please, and we will begin. Now, we're very fortunate in that we have a lot of questions, and I think that's great. However, our goal is to finish by 9:15. So this is what I'm going to ask the panel. Since we like to ask, and here's, I don't know, as many questions as we can, please make your answers as brief as you can. You know, you may have 2 minutes, but if you don't need 2 minutes, fine. You know, and if you have any comments. So I kind of shuffled them. I haven't had time to, analyze them by subject matter using previous ones. So we'll begin. All right, the first question, which is to all the candidates. What is the number one priority you would have if you were elected? Why don't we start with Diane? Just go down the table.
The number one priority is amending the fair share housing settlement. I have not heard from one resident who is happy, pleased, or accepting of this. So that is our number one priority, along with starting a community group that we would have input from the different civic associations, and if certain neighborhoods don't have a civic association, we can encourage them to find representation for their community. Thank you.
Go ahead, David.
I agree with Diane, the number one priority is the amendment of the Fair Share Housing Settlement Agreement. However, prior to that, we need to retain unbiased legal counsel to assist us in that process. And then also organize a citizens committee to focus on fair share housing. We should put it out to the community and have individuals who live in this town, who have interest and who have skills to help with guiding us through the zoning overlays and to amend this agreement. Thank you.
Boyan, what's your number one priority?
Well, it's funny to say that I will agree with Diane on this one. My number one priority, for sure, is to do the same thing and also to stop the dump project. I want to say that I was the first person that came on to the township meeting last year to actually, talk about how it is horrible for us to have 100% income segregated on a toxic dump. It is Mount Laura is against this. I said it so many times, I'm saying it again. So number one for me will be to stump the dump project and also to go back to the drawing board. Thank you.
Frank?
feel like once we get to the last person here, in this group, all that needs to be said is said, but I'll say it again. First thing, we're going to fire the incompetent professionals that advise us incorrectly. We could also consider suing some of them for malpractice, because I think we paid a lot in the way of attorney's fees, and I think we have some big refunds coming to us, right? So we're obviously going to also need to fight to modify the Fair Share Housing Agreement. We should go to the judge, explain what happened, explain all of the violations and irregularities that occurred, explain that our citizens' rights to be represented and to be heard on this issue were violated, and say, look, we want to have adequate time to create a new plan. And then what we need to do is form citizen advisory committees, perhaps break them out by neighborhoods. We have representatives from all the various neighborhoods have input. We should have public information sessions, and we should work as a community and use some of the brain power that we have in this community. We have some of the smartest people in the entire state, maybe even the country, that live in our community. I think if we come together collectively, we can come up with a much better settlement agreement that's going to work for everyone, including the people that it's designed to help. So those would be my priorities.
Great. Frank, since you don't want to be a repeater here, this question is directed to you. And the question is, what would Frank say to his critics? Were these critics challenging the length of his Millburn residency and the reasons for his running for township?
Sounds like that question is only appropriate for me. So yeah, it's true. I've only been actually living in town for 2 years. I spent the 2 years prior to that building a house in town with my husband. And we plan on being here for the next 30 plus years and raising a family here. And, you know, I only got involved in town politics in the spring when I got that flyer on my car. And I think if you look at all of the work that I've done, that my campaign team has done, that my husband has done, that we've all done collectively to try and bring awareness and fight against this, I think you'll see that in the last few months, I've done more work than many people in this town have done in years in terms of making contributions. So if you've seen that, you know, with that level of work that I've done, only imagine what I'll be able to accomplish in the next 3 years. Because I'm really passionate about fixing all of the problems in this town, because I'm trying to make it a great place for my future children.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, and I'm going to ask David to respond to this first. What are your thoughts on the recent lowering of downtown vacancies? Is percentage of vacancies an appropriate measure of the vibrancy of our downtown? If elected, what proposals do you have for improving our downtown as it relates to the types of businesses that we have in town?
The acknowledgement of zoning, of vacancy rates in town is one metric that can be utilized to measure successful lease-up of vacancies in the retail community. It is not a true measurement of vibrancy in the town, as the co-tenancy mix that is currently in Millburn is a bit lacking. We need to identify through the business ownership and through the special improvement district those uses which are missing in town, and we need to find the co-tenants that we can bring to Millburn. The special improvement district has done a good job of raising the awareness and bringing forward some interests in the brokerage community and the tenant community about Millburn. The issue becomes the challenges that businesses face when they go to the planning board and the zoning board. The costs are prohibitive. So the establishment of the technical review committee is a key component in bringing new and good co-tenancy to Millburn. And I think it's an initiative that my running mate began, and I think it's something we're working with the Special Improvement District. that can help all of the Millburn business districts.
Thank you, David. Wayne, what is your response?
My response is very short and simple, and it is, we need to take a survey of what the residents would like to see in our town. You know, when you go to other downtown, there's a lot of vibrancy, there's a lot of different shops, there's varieties. I saw recently that we have the Great Hive, for example, in town, which is something that my 15 years in Millburn, never seen anything like that. So in order for us to bring vibrancy to our downtown, we need to really look at what, you know, and take a survey maybe to see what residents would like to see. I don't think we need, and this is not an attack to any business, you know, 20, you know, nail salons or hair salons or, you know, pizzeria. I think, you know, having variety will bring the vibrancy that we're looking for. Thank you.
All right. Diane.
It's nice to have a wish list of tenants that we would like. However, you have to have a business owner willing to come in. And it's very expensive to get through the planning board or the board of adjustment process. My father years ago said, why do you have so many banks? And then it was another time, why do you have so many nail salons? And it's because that's who's willing to open the business and put the cash outlay out. So yeah, would I love a more variety of restaurants? Absolutely. Would I love a different variety of boutiques? Absolutely. But I think what's important is if we get interested businesses to come downtown, we work with the landlords. I don't know, it's not my thing how leases work, and they have to be willing to work with interested tenants, and the SID must go back to being ruled by the property owners who pay into it. I think that it was, people have mixed interpretations of the SID. Steve Billow is doing an amazing job bringing people into town, activating the different business areas in the town, but we have to keep people coming into town who know about Millburn, and we can't say, you can't have another nail salon, you can't have another yoga studio, because if we want the spaces filled, and that's who wants to fill it, then a business property owner is going to accept that person. So it's very complicated, and I think the fact that we did close Main Street has its pluses and minuses, but having a really good SID helps many, many communities, and I think we have to keep that going strong.
Frank.
So I think the vacancy rate isn't the best measure of the downtown vibrancy. I think there's other factors we need to consider. But I agree with what some of the others here said. We absolutely need to survey our residents and find out what types of shops they'd like to see in the downtown area. And we should consider bringing in businesses that will also offer enrichment activities for our children. I think that's something that would be beneficial. We have some of those, but always be good to have more. The other thing we need to do is focus on bringing anchor stores in. It's going to bring traffic to our downtown, not just from residents, but from other towns as well. And we should try and bring in specialty stores. Summit made a concerted effort years ago to bring in home design stores and home decor stores. We need to figure out what that anchor store industry is that we need to bring in and try to court them and try to get them to move to town. I think a lot of people would love to see specialty, cheese shops, butchers, fishmongers, other artisanal, gourmet food purveyors. So, again, let's get resident input, and then let's try and bring in the stores that residents actually want, and stores that will bring people to our town.
Thank you, Frank.
I'm sorry, did I have another question?
No, I apologize. I've been looking at
I could add a couple of other things,
Well,
if
that's
you'd
right.
like.
Tell us immediately at that meeting, and we'll be glad to hear it. No, I'm sorry, but I'm looking at all these questions, so I've gotten everybody. I apologize for that, but there's so many questions. Some of them relate together, and I'm trying to put those that might go together. But this one is somewhat related to what we've just been talking about, but a little bit different. Closing Main Street between Millburn Avenue and Essex Street caused huge inconvenience for the residents, but only benefited a few restaurants. Do you support closing Main Street for a few restaurants? Oya.
This is a very easy question. I don't think we need to close the main artery of our town. We've talked about this even in township meetings, to say some restaurants are benefiting, others like the Millburn restaurants are not benefiting. We need to really look very deeply into this. We're not even making money from the restaurants. When I met with the business administrator to find out how much are we bringing in when it comes to the closure of the roads, which is very inconvenient. I have 3 kids. I have to drop them off in 3 different schools. It takes me about 45 minutes around the block, trying to get around roads with this closure. So it's something that has been brought up in township meetings and dismissed. I feel like a lot of other restaurants that could benefit are not being put into the discussion. So I agree that many people come from out of town that I've actually, when I was door knocking and talking to residents and visitors that come to our town, they're enjoying it, but I feel like, it just doesn't give the same benefits that accords that restaurants to others. So we really need to look, and do a deep dive into how it will be beneficial to others. Thank you.
Diane.
Closing Main Street is obviously a mixed bag. It's very popular in the summer. It wasn't closed during school times, it was during the summer. My first concern when they closed Main Street was how it was going to affect our emergency responders. And I was very concerned, being on the first day, for 15 years, a 30-second or 15-second delay, if you have a kid or anybody who's an EpiPen, is huge. If you're performing CPR, I was always against it for that reason. However, I was assured by the fire chief, the police chief, and the VA that there was no problems with emergency response. I'm still not comfortable with that. I do know it benefits several restaurants more than others. It does bring a lot of people into town. It does also cost the DPW a lot of money to open and close it, and that's why they chose to do it for huge swaths during the summer, not during school. And they did it for Oktoberfest, which also we were not even informed. There are some things that we don't get informed about as TC members. I think a big solution is, since the Fleet Streets changed everything, we need to fix and open Town Hall Plaza, which I had a plan, and then once I was Liz Cheney, that plan went to the filing cabinet. Spring Street must go back to 2-way traffic, because that will allow some more circulation, especially once the Wells Fargo site is being constructed. There are things we can do, and closing Main Street is probably not in the best interest of the majority of our township people traveling through, and it is the main artery from Springfield to Livingston. So I know it really, and when I voted no, I think there's a lot of people who are very upset with me. So, you can't please all the people all the time, but there are things we can do to mitigate traffic if next year's township committee chooses to close it during the summertime only. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank.
So, I remember when this issue came up at a recent TC meeting over the summer. It was like 11 or 12 p.m. and 12 a.m. rather. I got up and spoke out against it, and I asked our business administrator a question. And that question was, how much revenue is the town getting from all of the downtown businesses that are benefiting from this free square footage that they get to use? He said they pay a $400 fee at the beginning of the season, and that's it. And to me, this seems really unfair, one, to the town, because the town has to have DPW go, close and open the streets. It's also really unfair to all the other businesses in town, because why should these few businesses, specifically the Millburn Standard, get all the benefits of this extra square footage, while the rest of the businesses in town, don't get any benefit from it? It just doesn't seem fair. The other thing is, it's just a completely dumb idea to close down the main artery in town. We have enough traffic problems as is in town, and we shouldn't be adding to them. Now, if we wanted to do something like Summit and find a seldom used side street to close down, maybe that's something we could consider. But I think we've got so many other things to focus on, so many other problems to solve in this town, that we shouldn't be, arbitrarily closing streets and then quibbling over that. We have more important things to focus on. That's my answer.
Thank you, David.
I don't disagree with what Frank said. I think his methodology is accurate. It's not the best option to close the center of town. Unfortunately for Millburn, our street grid is not set up like it does in some of the other towns such as Summit and Cranford, where they have viable side streets which have retail density that you can draw upon. I think, as Oyen said, there is options that are available to us, and I think that if we choose to do it for periods of the summer months that are less inconvenient to the residents, I think that should be looked at. I think it does create some vibrancy downtown. I think there is opportunity for others to share in it, but it's got to be developed more. And at the end of the day, we need some more retail density in that area to really make it something that we can grow upon. I mean, right now we have a complete corner at Essex and Main, which is vacant, and that causes a problem for everyone. One of the other issues is we need more liquor licenses downtown. I mean, we have 6 liquor licenses sitting at the Short Hills Mall. We need to work through the legislative process to get the Short Hills Mall a master license and bring a couple of them back to the downtown area. And that's not just the center of town, that's, Upper Millburn Avenue, that's the 5 districts that we have. Millburn can be vibrant, it can be a vibrant retail experience, and certainly we can build upon that, but we've got to have a plan to develop it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This next question I'm going to direct to Frank and Oyen, but if either David or Diane want to respond to it, then raise your hand. You'll see perhaps what I mean when I read the question. Over the past several years, it seems like the politics have become more partisan along party lines when party political positions do not seem relevant to local politics. Can you reassure the voters that you will act in the best interest of Millburn Township, regardless of any party affiliation? Frank?
That's a great question. Thank you for whoever submitted that one. So, as I said earlier, I have been a member of both political parties. I've mostly been unaffiliated. And, I don't really think that national politics and local politics should be related in any way. Yeah, we have a multi-party system. That's what we have here in town. We wanted to change that. That's something that the residents could vote on, something that could be looked into. But for now, that's what we have. And, I should explain, I was conflicted running, for a particular party. And, I think I'm able to differentiate national and local politics. I'm very moderate, so for me, there's not going to be any undue influence from the political party. I mean, the other thing is, this is New Jersey. There's no big bad Republican political machine, right? It just doesn't exist. Who's going to put the pressure on me, right? So I'm just simply trying to do what's best for the town. This is the town I'm going to live in for the next 30 years. I'm going to raise my family in, and I saw some problems, and I just want to solve them, and I'm certainly going to keep national politics out of it. I don't even agree with some of either party's stances on national politics, so I'm just focused on what's going on here in Millburn and trying to make Millburn better.
Oyen?
Thank you. In addition to, I agree with everything Frank just said, and not to sound repetitious. I've been called many names. I've been attacked. Why are you black and being Republican? I've been called many names. And my response is, whether I am independent, Democrat, or Republican, everything that I said tonight stands. So if you want to put someone in a box, at least have a reason to do that. So if I become a Democrat tomorrow, I'm still going to be standing for the same values. you know, and what I stand for is to fight for sensible development. I said to someone the other day, I said, if I'm an extremist because I'm fighting for our schools to stand great, then I guess I am. If I'm standing for great roads and safety for all residents, then I guess I am. So whether I am under the Republican Party, Democrat, or Independent, or you will still speak to every single thing and stand behind it. As I mentioned in one of the my answers earlier, you know, I was on the Board of Ed, and every single one who has worked with me on the Board of Ed, even during closed door negotiations and executive session, can say that I'm a very, very fair, level-headed person. I listen to both sides of the equation before I make any decision. Usually I'm very quiet, and when I'm quiet and I'm not speaking, it's because I'm listening. Everybody have their strength. And so that's what I'll be bringing to Township. So whether I'm seen as a Republican or a Democrat or independent, whatever you want to see me, what you see is what you get with Wayne. Thank you.
Frank and Diane, do you want to respond to this question? Diane? Okay.
Clearly, I've been told I'm pretty gutsy because I'm willing to go against the norm. We do have a two-party system, and to run, you need the coveted party line. I really believe if Frank and Wayne were not going to bow to the Republican where they've gotten a lot of money, they would have stood, and what Dave and I do, they would have run as independents. And just like the Board of Ed, your name is there. I don't know if they pull it from a hat or alphabetical. We'd all be here not having a party line behind us. So I think it's really, really important that this is the time that Dave and I are going to start to change the party line momentum in Millburn. We're asking you to join us. This is the time. Independent is the way local politics should be. And maybe if we're lucky one day, it'll work its way up through the national system.
David, you want to add to that?
There really, to echo what Diana just said, there really is no need for political parties involved in local governance. I truly believe both of my Republican opponents are moderate people, they're intelligent people, they're very likable. I know a lot of the Republicans and have gotten to meet them in town. This is not a community that you would consider you know, aligned with the Republican Party nationally. I don't believe that. I'm sure there may be some beliefs, but I don't see it. But all that being said, I think there was a bit of an opportunistic standpoint taken by these two moderate, sensible people to run on a line that provided them some financing and some, you know, access to the community of Republicans who could give them support. I just don't think it's necessary in local government. We see what the Democratic machine has done to Millburn, and we certainly don't want any sort of machine giving us dictates to do anything in this town. We're smart enough people, we're individualists, we understand and are intelligent enough to work together as a community, and I think independence is the way to go. I've been a lifelong independent. As I said, I'm a social progressive and a fiscal conservative, and I think a lot of my fellow neighbors are as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, William, I see you're raising your hand. You want to make a comment. And by all means, we'll let you do it. I'm going to ask that it's very brief, and I'll tell you why. Because it's the last 9 o'clock. We have some kind of interesting questions we want to do, and we want all of you to have a chance to do your closing statements, which are very important part of you. So with that in mind, what would you like to say?
I would like to say, Diane, you're still a Democrat. And at the end of the day, for 6 years, you were a Democrat and you were led by the machine. So for you to sit here and try to take a ding at myself and my running mate is very appalling to me. And David, you just made mention of us being, if I remember correctly, that we want to take money from. No, that is not true. We're funded by residents, the residents of this town. People who have donated to our campaign has been Democrats, Independents, and Republicans. So
Well,
I
I'm
would
gonna
like
ask you
to, I
to
would like to correct
bring it to a
that.
conclusion for the reasons I said.
Yes, so I would just like to say that, and there's a lot of Democrats for Frank and Oyen. They're out there, and they know that we are the true candidates that will move Millburn forward.
Mr. Hildner, I just must, and I'm gonna make this incredibly brief. I have
Seconds or
never
less.
been controlled by the Democratic Party. Nobody controls me. Ask my husband.
All right. Now we have kind of a follow-up question which I think fits in here nicely and with some of the things we've been saying. And this question is this: would you, it's addressed to all candidates, so keeping in mind, try to make your answer as brief as you can, would you support the formation of a charter commission to look at the current form of government in Millburn and recommend alternatives to be voted on by residents if they felt the town would be better served by an alternative which is more effective and efficient? And I'm going to tack this one on to it, which is another question relates to it. What is your view on expanding the township committee to more than 5 members, such as 7 or 9? How about making the election non-partisan? So, David, I'm going to ask you that question first.
What was the first part of that question?
The first part was, would you support the formation of a
I'm being a little bit sarcastic. Yes, absolutely, I would support the formation of a committee to review the charter commission. I think that is, and I think I commented this online, it's long past due. And coupled with that, I would certainly have a referendum as quick as we could put out for the community to vote upon that. In addition, I would certainly be open to expanding the township committee. We certainly, as I said before, have enough intelligent people in this town that could assist with the process, especially if it's one that is non-partisan. Thank you.
Frank?
Sure. So obviously, I would support the formation of a commission to update and modernize the government. I think the citizens of this town should be the ones to decide what form of government we have. I fundamentally believe in the right to self-determination. So yeah, I would absolutely support a commission. I also think that they should look into whether we should have initiative, recall and referendum. I think those are important things. If we had initiative and referendum, I think we may avoid some of the problems that we have now, where, it's my understanding there's some township committee members being recalled because citizens feel that's really the only recourse they have. If we had initiative and referendum, that may have been able to be avoided, right? As far as making the elections nonpartisan, I mean, that's something we have to see what the commission comes up with, and that's something that needs to go to a referendum, and the voters need to vote and choose that. Now, what I find interesting is, Diane has all of a sudden had this epiphany that maybe we should be nonpartisan. But for 6 years, she was a Democrat. She ran as a Democrat. She ran on the Democratic line.
I'm going to ask you to finish
So
up
why
the...
the sudden change of heart now after the Democratic Party is...
Frank, please finish.
Thank you.
Why don't you respond?
Okay, it wasn't an epiphany. As we know, this is a two-party town. I've always been asked why. I said that's just the way the government is. So absolutely, we need a charter commission to investigate other forms of government. Should we have an elected mayor? Summit and Westfield have wards, and they have at-large. So South Mountain would have a representative, Hartshorn, Deerfield, Washington section, and then there being 2 at-large. That might be an interesting way to go. I don't know if 7 or 9 people is necessarily the answer, but this actually has to be investigated by a commission. They then bring the results back like they did 50 years ago. Interestingly enough, that was completely investigated by a Republican run town, and then it did go up a referendum, and it was voted no. So I believe times they are changing, and I believe this came to a referendum in the town, this would absolutely, positively pass, no question.
I will support the commission, but as Frank mentioned, we just need to let the residents speak, and they will speak regarding the kind of government that they want. Simple. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. There are several questions kind of relate to the same general issue. The question is, would you, look for the question here. Would you support reestablishment of a local television channel? And what would your vote be if there was a minimum requirement? Would you choose to broadcast all of township committee meetings and BOA meetings? What do you support that or not? So why don't you start us off, Diana?
I agree with Tara. She said we should form a survey and find out who's really watching that TV channel. It would be a great way, like Perry sent us an email, that to get to know the candidates. We don't have the Millburn item. But is it also looking for commercials? I don't really know what the purpose. We do have everything up on our YouTube channel. We could easily morph that onto the channel. We have to first know people are watching it. What was the last part of the question?
How confident are you that you will have the votes on the township committee to accomplish this?
I can't tell you how other people would vote. I think we have to do a survey and find out who's watching that cable channel.
Okay.
There is no sound.
David.
Nobody.
You know, I don't know enough about the cable channel, its application, its cost. I need to learn a little bit more about it, but I've certainly heard from enough residents that they would like it. So I think a first step is to absolutely take a survey of the community residents, and if they're in favor of establishing it, even if it's as simple as hooking up a computer to have an informational role on the channel, I think is certainly something that would be beneficial. So as I learn more about it, I think I would generally support it, but I don't frankly know enough about it at this point.
Okay, Oyen?
I think we don't need to wait to take a survey with this. You know, we've ignored like our senior citizens. Not everybody use computers. Not everybody know how to use Zoom. You know, in fact, during COVID, our township committee wanted to even take Zoom away. How do we expect, you know, nursing mothers to, people with, parents with small children to participate in TC meetings? We already have the channel. All we have to do is use it. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, Frank.
So as an IT infrastructure engineer, obviously I love the opportunity to have technology projects. Here's the thing, the channel already exists. It's already there. We apparently have most of the equipment that we need. So it's probably a matter of hooking a computer with the right software up to this, and then having some people that are willing to run it. And you know what? We've got a high school full of students who would probably love to have the opportunity to get into broadcasting or to experience broadcasting. What a great educational opportunity we have. And it doesn't cost us anything extra, we already have it. Yeah, maybe we need to buy a computer or two or a video encoder card. As for what we could broadcast, well, in addition to all of the stuff that the students might create and broadcast, anything that we record and send to YouTube, you know, or via Zoom, we can easily just fork that or just upload the recording so that it runs on the channel. I know when I've been door knocking, there's actually a surprising number of residents that are older and don't use a computer. They don't know how to use YouTube, or you know, they don't want to and are unwilling to learn. So if we have this channel sitting there unutilized, we might as well put all of the recorded content we have in town, and that includes sports games, etc. Why not put it on the channel? Doesn't really cost anything. And we can certainly survey citizens to see what type of content they want. But I think, you know, if we publish that we have these capabilities, we're organically going to get a lot of volunteers that will want to participate.
Okay, thank you. This is going to be our last question, given the time. And I'm hopeful that'll be a yes or no answer. The question is this. Have you taken any money into your current campaign from a developer, planner, engineer, developer's attorney, or any other developer connected entity? Why don't we go with you, Frank, work our way down? Yes or no? The answer is yes, if you want to give a small explanation. Fine.
I'm thinking about it because we have received a lot of donations from a lot of residents. A lot of them have been retired, some of them work in industry. The only one I can think of that might remotely have something to do with development is someone that recently endorsed me, Howard Lepo. and he's a developer in New York City. He doesn't have any business activity here in New Jersey. And he's actually instrumental in helping connect me with various municipal land use attorneys to get information on how we could fight against this fair share housing settlement agreement. So that's the only thing I can think of
Okay.
in terms of there being any sort of developer. It's mostly individual residents, that just believe in what Wayne and I are trying to do, and they believe in our message.
William? Yes or no?
Same answer, thank you.
Okay. David?
To my knowledge, the only individual who may have a real estate relationship that has given us a small amount of money is Ken Mandelbaum.
Diane?
Same answer.
All right, that completes the question. At this point, we're going to bring our debate to a conclusion, and that means it's time for your closing statement. So we are going to do this in the following order. I'm going to ask Frank to go first, followed by Dave, followed by William, and then followed by Diane. So the statement should be no longer than 3 minutes. So please begin, Frank.
So I'd like to start by thanking the Short Hills Association for graciously hosting this event. I'd like to thank my fellow candidates, Oyen, Diane, David, and I'm not going to thank myself for their attendance tonight. It's unfortunate that the Democrats declined this invitation because I think you as residents have the right to be informed regarding every candidate on the ballot. Given how monumental this election is to our town's future, it's essential for you all to be equipped with all of the information you need to make informed decisions as to which candidates are best equipped to handle the multitude of challenges Millburn is facing. It's disappointing that you have all been disrespected by the Democratic candidates in their failure to show up and participate. As you can probably tell, my motivations for running are pure. My husband Jerry and I intend to start a family and live in this community for the next several decades. We have skin in the game. We happen to stumble upon a problem that could drastically alter everything we moved here for. The fantastic schools, the safe neighborhoods, and the bucolic suburban atmosphere. I'm running with Oyen to fix the serious issues our town is facing. I truly believe that Oyen and I are the only candidates with the proper experience and qualifications to lead this town out of the mess the existing township committee has created. I'm going to revisit the disastrous fair share housing settlement agreement. I'm working alongside you, the residents. We're going to achieve an outcome that reflects the desires of our community. We've publicly released proposals that will allow us to scrap the income-segregated dump housing project and eliminate the high-density zoning changes that would unnecessarily encourage overdevelopment of our town. We believe our plan is viable, and based on recently established court precedents and outside legal counsel I've talked to, it doesn't even technically require fair share housing approval so long as the new judge upholds the existing court precedents. But we can probably do even better than that. Oyen and I will also bring a sense of balance to our current, to the township committee. Our township committee right now is single-party rule. Even Diane, she's running as an independent, still a registered Democrat. So is Tara. So we've got 5 Democrats up there. It's time that we have diversity of voices and ideas. And for far too long, our community has been subjected to the pitfalls of groupthink. We need to elect qualified, competent candidates who have a proven track record of critical thinking. I'm an engineer. I look at things through a quantitative and analytical mindset. Oyen is a scientist. She does the same. So we know how to tackle complex projects, and we have proven track records in our professional career. These are the skills that are directly applicable to the township committee. We need leaders with business acumen and a quantitative approach to solving problems. I'm an engineer. My entire job is to solve problems. So once I'm elected, that's exactly what I'm going to do for the town. And we should all be clear, this is one of the most consequential elections we've seen in a long time. So I would urge you to all look and ask yourself, of all the candidates running, who are the candidates that have the experience necessary and have skin in the game, and who are the candidates that are merely looking for a hobby and doing this for whatever personal reasons they have. I can tell you, I didn't want to get into politics, but I felt that I had to do something to fix what's going on in this town, and that's why I'm running. So I thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Frank. Keith?
I want to thank again the Short Hills Association for hosting this debate. I want to thank my fellow candidates for being here. I think it was highly questionable that the Democratic candidates chose not to be here. I think you can all make that value judgment for yourself. I believe no challenge is insurmountable if we work together, even that caused by the Millburn Democratic leadership's decision to create disproportionate zoning overlays, potentially suffocating this town's infrastructure, and build an income-segregated housing project on the toxic town dump. In opposition to that type of partisan expediency and neglect, we will ask for your vote, line C. My running mate, lifelong resident and community volunteer, Diane Aglow, asked me to run with her. I told her only as an independent. The time for polished partisan politics and party rule in Millburn, both Democratic and Republican, is beyond over. We need focused residents that listen, are responsive, and committed to our joint quality of life in Millburn Short Hills. The choices are clear. Democratic candidates will move in unison with their settlement agreement, Best We Can Do, brethren, those who have turned a deaf ear to our community's pleas for reasonability. The Republican candidates have a passionate base. They are overfunded, overpolished, and their solutions may result in further challenges and litigation costs for Millburn Short Hills. Rather than engagement, all of our residents are demanding.
Well funded.
We don't need partisan party influence to manage and govern our town. We need to listen to our community. They want to engage with a progressive, responsive, independent governing body in Millburn Short Hills. We will listen and work for you. Join us. Vote line C. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. William.
I'd like to say thank you to the Short Hills Association and also to my fellow candidates. My running mate Frank and I represent the most diverse ticket the township has ever had. We believe our township committee must have diversity of thoughts and ideas to develop a more positive relationship with residents and other stakeholders who are not being consulted on important matters that are silenced by the township committee's secret actions. All 5 township committee members, including candidate Diane Aglow, voted in favor of an extremely detrimental fair share affordable housing settlement that will ruin this town if not stopped and amended. The Democrat-controlled township committee has used their unchecked power to agree to, but not yet finalize, the worst affordable housing deal in the state of New Jersey. Frank and I, if elected, can turn this bad deal around and save Millburn from the negative impacts of the current development plans. The Township Committee has agreed to allow the construction of hundreds of high-density apartments in town, up to 70% more housing units than our current base. But it is unconscionable that they haven't done a single impact study as to the downstream implications that will have on our community. How many new students will flood our schools? How much traffic will clog our streets? What safety issues will result? Whether our power and water infrastructure can handle this vast increase in housing. When I saw how the current Township Committee members disregard residents and fail to answer their concerns, I had to step forward. I will work with our residents and advance policies that reflect the will of our people. We will stop the dump project in its tracks and ultra-high density income-segregated housing project on our toxic DPW site. We will protect our children's schools and the high-quality delivery of Millburn public education. Leadership skills are needed to unify community. Listening and engaging with residents sincerely should be a top priority for anyone serving in office. An elected official should never vilify any resident who comes before him or her with a different view or different ideas. I am blessed to have an incredible running mate in Frank Sacramento. We both have skin in the game with young families and 30 more years to go living in this town, maybe even more. We complement each other well. We both have learned analytical and management skills. Our combined professional experiences demonstrate we have the needed leadership skills to steer the Township Committee in a better direction going forward. Together, we will reset the tone of the Township Committee. We pledge to bring decorum, civility, balance, and order to all Township Committee deliberations. We have worked hard to get to know you and earn your vote. We are honored to feel the support from this community, from neighbors of all affiliations and backgrounds. We have heard the voice of the community, and with you, we will steer the direction of the township in a better way forward. We are the best choice for Millburn's future. Let's make this election about reclaiming our future for our kids and our democracy. Vote line B. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane, you get the last word.
Thank you. Thank you, Short Hills Association, fellow candidates, people attending, and people watching from home. David and I are on line C. C, the correct choice for Millburn Township Committee. We are independents. We believe party politics have no place in our local government. This is a first for our town. It is time to stop the fighting and the anger and the refusal to find common ground that comes with fierce party loyalty. I bring a moderate, centrist approach to governance that is reflective of our residents' positions on local matters. I also bring historical knowledge. I will use what I've learned from my 6-year tenure to make course corrections where and when needed. Republican candidates have experience in the corporate world, but municipal governance is not the corporate world. Public policy is not data-driven, as the opponents have repeatedly stated in their videos. Their calculations using quantitative data analysis do not reflect reality. I do not believe we'll have a 70% increase in population, nor will every overlay site be built. While their professional credentials do not translate into municipal government, they are impressive. They have read statements at township committee meetings and released videos which arouse fear about the future of the township we love. Fear tactics are dangerous. No one can make good decisions when they're under pressure, something we learned from the 2 Democratic committee members and Mr. Buzak, who compelled the rest of us to approve the settlement agreement without full disclosure. I have repeatedly asked how the density and overlay zones were determined. I, as a township committee member, still do not know, nor do our residents. No wonder there's such discontent. Running with a political party support gives the Democrat and Republican candidates the financial backing to produce promotional pieces that are pretty slick. It's hard for a viewer to assume it's not factual. However slick and expensive they are, they do not reflect reality. Our plan is to amend the settlement agreement. Blowing up the settlement and going to fair share housing in court is not in the township's best interest. We will listen, we'll build consensus in the community. And this does include starting a community residence committee. I believe, Mr. Cosgrove, you brought that to our attention first, and Tara and I are absolutely on board with that, as is Dave. Lastly, as a registered Democrat, I will be voting for Mikey Sherrill, who, like me, strongly supports a woman's right to choose and supports the LGBT community. She, as I, do not want any person or group to lose their hard-fought rights. As Mikey Sherrill says, quote, I am focused on putting country over party. I say let's follow her lead from Millburn Township. Millburn over party. We're asking for your vote. We're asking for your vote, line C, for Eglin Morrow, independent candidates to move Millburn Township Committee forward for 2023. Thank you all for attending.
All right, thank you, Diane. I hope that everybody found this to be a very enlightening and informative debate, no matter what you agree with you or I also want to thank some of the people who helped make this happen, and we're talking about Sandy Kimmel here, our timekeeper, we're talking about Dave Cosgrove, who did a tremendous amount of work, we're talking about Jim Ledoux, who is the president of the Short Hills Association, and I thank them. I thank the candidates in particular because you don't have to be around township government much to know how much work it is to work on the township committee, how much work it is to be a candidate and be willing to sacrifice your time, probably some income, in order to try to serve people, and whether or not we agree with them or not on any given issue. So I want to thank them, and I think they well deserve the round of applause you gave them. And finally, and very important, you have to vote on the referee. So go out there, and whether you're going to do it by absentee ballot, you're going to be there, vote, because this is an important election up and down the state. Thanks very much for coming. This is Major League Baseball night. I appreciate it. and that you came and made this what I hope is a successful.
Thank you,
Drive
Tom.
safely.
Thank you. No, I- Tom.